let's go ahead and speak quickly to Drew in Oklahoma. Drew, what's on your mind tonight?
Hi. Well, I just saw the questionnaire and the answer and topic and wanted to call in because this one, as a neurodivergent person, I was interested in the masking discussion, but that came up after I had already called in. Instead of ever really masking, I'm on the autism spectrum, and my mom just introduced me to etiquette videos really young. And so I had rules that I could rely on instead of masking because it was just actually being taught that.
But yes, there's a level of intentionality of knowing that you're following the script rather than on a internal level, awkwardly berating yourself without realizing it for struggling to follow the script. Is that at all a fair way of describing it for you?
Absolutely. I just think that we don't actively teach people enough who are neurodivergent, give them a chance to try to learn the rules of society because it's just, we don't do that stuff anymore. Etiquette
I don't know. I would challenge you, Drew, because there are no rules of society. There's just the rules of your demographic, like
your class. Yeah.
Yeah. So there aren't really any rules, and you could learn rules and then go.
I wouldn't necessarily say rules of society, but not necessarily that there are rules of society, but if you have a pre-programmed set of rules you can rely on as this is a good way to be, if not social, polite and acceptable.
A codified etiquette.
Yeah, that's why I think I come off more as eccentric, not weird, because I'm probably overly more formal and polite. But I'm not saying that this is like a need to do thing. I just think it's a great tool for people who want to learn these subtle things about socializing.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, there's a show called Love on the Spectrum, and I'm sure people have varied opinions about that, and that's not the point I'm trying to make. But there is a person that comes onto the show who coaches. So they're like a person who coaches people on the spectrum who need social skills. And so she doesn't really explicitly say this or say that, but more general things of if you're having a conversation with someone, try to find out if you have something in common in interests. And so it's things like that. So it's not explicit, but more general, how do you get someone to feel connected, and how to get conversation flowing and that kind of thing. And I think that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think maybe it applied more when I was a really little kid.
Sure.
But also, since the topic was more about the love life, I've just found, I think it's my neurodivergence in this case, but it hasn't ever been very important to me because I think it ties into one of my side effects of autism combined with face blindness. I never think that people are talking about me, and so assume that nobody is, and that nobody ever worries about if you're talking. That I have trouble believing people worry about what other people think of them. And so I think I'm the same way. Romance stuff is that sounds nice. I could get to that eventually, but it's not pressing because there's no external feeling that people are judging me for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredibly fair. We've been saying, defer to your brain. If you're comfortable in, then that's good.
Yeah. So before we take on our next caller, Drew, is there anything in particular that you might be able to pass on? Any particular advice about how to be more transparent or sincere, or maybe present could be a better term for it, in maybe in a romantic setting, or really just in your social life?
I think that one of the biggest problems is that people put too much emphasis on spectacle with romantic stuff. They assume that the actions have to be different because the emotion behind them is different. When I think just explaining the context, an action that could be a friendly gift can just as well be a really romantic action. And
I think I understand what
I
you
think
mean. Just
that's
like allowing, allowing behaviors to kind of bleed between romance and platonic. Is that what you're kind of saying? Allowing, yeah, maybe. Oh no,
I
is
was
that right?
saying that kind of. I was saying that I feel people separate them too much, and so they feel that they can't do something that might normally be platonic because romance has to be something more. When the something more probably just comes from it being romantic instead of it needing to be a truly different action. It's the emotional context that matters more than the physical activity.
Yeah, well, and I think it encourages us to be explicit, to say, I'm giving this to you because, and I was hoping to express this feeling, or this is the idea that I wanted to share with you. And I think building a more accepting, a less ableist, a more like neurodiverse, accommodating world involves a lot of being willing to explain ourselves, like being willing to say the quiet part out loud and be explicit in ways that we've been socialized to think is somehow like tacky or weird or wrong. And
Or
I
needy.
really reject that. Yeah. I
Yeah,
really want to encourage
absolutely.
everybody to be willing to be explicit and to not feel like they have to be suave and charming by being secretive, particularly if you're in a neurodiverse relationship.
Yes, that's it exactly. Thank you.
That's
Well,
great. Thank you, Drew.
yeah, I really appreciate you highlighting that for us, and I think giving us all permission a little bit, because it can feel very prescriptive to tell people like, you need to use more words. But when we start to recognize how it actually shows up in our lives and the complications and the pain that it can cause by being sly or shy, it becomes a little bit more clear why we communicate with each other.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much for calling. You have a wonderful night.